Well,
I can see now.
thank you. Okay, well, here's what we missed. Let me just back up, run through it real fast. Okay. You can see what I mean about the afternoon. Anyway, what's our why? So we're in a really unprecedented time. Everyone keeps talking about it, and there's two reasons that I feel so strongly about the arts and SEL. And one of them is healing, and one of them is engagement. And so because of COVID, there's been so much trauma to students and to adults and to teachers. And so, sorry, my green screen is falling down because one of my cats ran into it. Anyway, we've had so much trauma and stress in dealing with that. And the second challenge that we have is engagement for students. Students that are home might be bored, and arts is a way to bring them to the table and have them excited about being with us in the classroom. And if you're wanting a definition of poetry, I won't read this to you, but the picture is kind of funny to me because when I first got interested in poetry in my adult years, people kept, offering me berets and bongo drums and that type of thing as a joke about poetry. And I have a sense of humor about that because I think it's all in good fun. So poetry is really expressive writing in a shorter form than we usually do. And there's many different forms that you're probably familiar with, and a couple of them that we're going to tackle today. So I wanted to share a couple of poems with you to really convey where is the emotional piece. And so there's two of them. One is called I'm an Emotional Creature by Eve Ensler, and the second one is called 'Cause He's Black by Javon Johnson. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up those videos one at a time. And here is let me go back here. Okay, so this is Eve Ensler.
Close today with a new piece from my book, and I want to do it tonight for the girl and everybody here, and I want to do it for Sunita, and I want to do it for the girls that Sunita talked about yesterday, the girls who survive, the girls who can become somebody else, but I really want to do it for each and every person here, to value the girl in us, to value the part that cries, to value the part that's emotional, to value the part that's vulnerable, to understand that's where the future lies. This is called I'm an Emotional Creature, and it happened because I met a girl in Watts, LA. I was asking girls if they liked being a girl, and all the girls were like, no, I hate it, I can't stand it, it's all bad, my brothers get everything, and this girl just sat up and went, I love being a girl, I'm an emotional creature. This is for her. I love being a girl. I can feel what you're feeling as you're feeling inside the feeling before. I am an emotional creature. Things do not come to me as intellectual theories or hard-pressed ideas. They post through my organs and legs and burn up my ears. Oh, I know when your girlfriend's really pissed off, even though she appears to give you what you want. I know when a storm is coming. I can feel the invisible stirrings in the air. I can tell you we won't call back. It's a vibe I share. I am an emotional creature. I love that I do not take things lightly. Everything is intense to me. The way I walk in the street, the way my mama wakes me up, the way it's unbearable when I lose, the way I hear bad news. I am an emotional creature. I am connected to everything and everyone. I was born like that. Don't you say all negative, that it's only a teenage thing, or it's only because I'm a girl. These feelings make me better. They make me present. They make me ready. They make me strong. I am an emotional creature. There's a particular way of knowing. It's like the older women somehow forgot. I rejoice that it's still in my body. Oh, I know when the coconut's about to fall. I know we have pushed the earth too far. I know my father isn't coming back, and that no one's prepared for the fire.
So that is just a taste of Eve Ensler, and then I'm going to go ahead and put a second poem up for us to check out. Let's see. if I can grab that one. Seems like I don't have that one up there. Okay, well, we will go back in here. So in that particular poem, she is really speaking about her experience as a girl and what that feels like. And it definitely conveys emotions, and she is setting out to make us feel a certain way. And I've given that poem, I've actually performed that poem for all, groups of all women or at a poetry reading, and it has actually made people cry because she goes on from there. So that is one of the things about poetry. It really condenses emotion into a very short space, but it really gives you an idea of how the poet is feeling. So that is one of my favorites. The other one you can look up on YouTube, Because He's Black. It starts out very light and funny, and then is really about a man taking his nephew on a car trip, and they pull up beside a police car and what they experience with that. So they're both very strong poems, and it really brings out the emotion, which is an important part of SEL. And so if you're just gaining familiarity with SEL, just to review what that means, it's really about the process through which children and adults understand and manage their emotions. And this has become more important than ever. Something that was talked about prior to distance learning, but really has come into more significance for us. And so the first capacity is self-awareness. And so it's really understanding who you are and what your skill set is. And once you really have a good understanding about that, that really leads to a sense of confidence, because what you know about yourself is true and valid. The second one also has to do with oneself and self-management. So once you have a knowledge of one's emotions and how you're going to react to things and what things bother you and what things please you and so forth, you can manage stress better, because it's not like you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop all the time. You have a sense of your own self and how to control those things for your own reactions. And then you move into social awareness, which is, I highlighted empathizing with others, but it's just recognizing other people, different backgrounds, different cultures, what are the norms, and how to recognize what's appropriate in different settings. Then we get into relationship skills, and it's really about the things that we need to have healthy and rewarding relationships. And what I love about this is if you're able to communicate and manage yourself and then start to empathize and relate to other people, then cooperation becomes so much easier, and it makes students able to work well in a classroom setting and adults able to work well in a work setting, and that's important to all of us. And then the final one is kind of the capstone in a way, is responsible decision making. So if you have all of those capacities going for you, then you're going to make thoughtful and constructive choices about your life. And again, you're not just reacting to things and you're not buffeted by the events and the fates. You have some power over your own self-actualization. And that's the SEL summary that's available at the CASEL website. That's CASEL, and Jessica can put that in the chat for you. So what we're trying to do today is blend the two, social emotional learning and poetry. How do those work together? So for example 1, we have paper bag poetry, and this is just so simple, and I'm expecting you to do this, Kiana, tomorrow. But this is great for little ones because you can take a paper bag, and I have one here, and you can fill it with several items, different sizes, shapes, and textures. And of course, in person, this would look a lot different. But if we're doing it virtually, you can yourself reach into the bag. And so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to pull things out. And I want you to describe in just a couple of words on your own piece of paper each thing that I pull out. Okay, ready? All right, so the first one is a candle. Okay, and so if I run my hands along it and I look at the top, that doesn't show very well with the green screen, but it's a candle. It's like a pillar candle. And I want you to write down a few words to describe it. So what it might smell like, what it looks like, what it feels like. Just give me a few words. And the next thing I'm going to pull out of the bag is a lot of cats running around here. And so this is, you can see it's metallic and it's crinkly and it's kind of noisy. So give me a couple words about that as the next line. We're really concentrating on look and feel. And so the third thing in my bag is a scarf. Hard to imagine wearing a scarf these days because it's so hot, but it's, This is a nice one. It feels good on my face. There's a lot of colors. What could you say about that? What does it look like? What might it feel like? And that would be your third line of the poem. I'm going to put those back in the bag. And I'm wondering if we have a volunteer who might unmute themselves and share what their couple of lines look like for their paper bag poem. Or we could put it in the chat. There we go. Okay, can I pick on you, Tiana?
Yeah. I just wanted to, give it a beat. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder.
Sure. Wait time.
Okay, so I said, slippery, smooth, and waxy, loud, crispy, crinkly, golden, soft snuggles.
I like that. Shorter ending. Very nice. So that's a brilliant job. That's exactly what it looks like. And it's just a really accessible way. It's an icebreaker. It's just a way to connect. You could do that first thing in the morning to have a connection with your students. So it's just a very simple little poem structure. So well done. Thank you. All right. And I'm going to go through 7 examples today. So that's number 1. Number 2 is a very simple one as well, poetry in a different voice. And so poetry is about how you receive it, what do you hear? So it's what the reader's experiences and also what the listener's experiences. So what you can play around with is how do we read something in a variety of ways? We typically tend to just follow the rules and do it just like it's written or just as it's intended. So in this case, we have a sad poem, How Could I Be So Lonely? So it's not meant to be funny or goofy or anything, but you can experiment with students doing that in a silly voice. And so again, what's the emotion, what's the facial expression, and students will start to recognize how they're correlated. So I don't know if I can pick on another volunteer. It's a little bit tough, and you guys know this as teachers, when you have just a black screen to talk to, because you can't really read people's reactions. But I think you did this one for me one time, Jessica, did you? No, oh, heck no, okay. When I did this one with one group, somebody read this in a Donald Duck voice, and I could not stop laughing. It was so funny. So I'll move on to the next one. If I don't have a volunteer, I suppose I could do it.
I do have a question. Is that sort of a prompt that you would give, or an example, like, it might be Donald Duck, or it might be... Yeah,
and I've had someone do it in a baby voice, or, just silly in any way, right? And so then I'm going to flip it around.
Volunteer to do that?
You volunteer to do that? Okay.
Absolutely. Let's see.
Okay. So sad poem in a silly voice. Jessica's smiling already.
I'm trying not to. Let's see. Sad poem in a silly.
Sad. This person is sad.
How could I be so lost in a place I know so well? How could I be so broken in a family so together? How can I be so lonely, surrounded by so many people? And how can I be so unhappy, surrounded by so much beauty? And how could I be me, even when I remain a mystery?
Well done. You had some facial gestures and some body movement going on. It was interesting. I'm like, is she being sarcastic? But that's the thing, is like, if you have the students watching each other, there's a lot of feedback and a lot of commentary on that. And again, we're kind of unraveling.
It made me feel like, like how I'm living right now. I'm very familiar with Zoom, technology and teaching, but in this moment, it's frazzled. So
it's a bit of a lump. Yeah.
I need to reflect a little bit about what that's doing inside of me.
Yes. Truly, absolutely. And then the second example I have is The Life of a Cupcake, and it's meant to be funny. And so then I would suggest having students read it. They're scared, like, oh, because it's going to get eaten, basically. This was the day this cupcake died. So that's the scared voice. So children really enjoy this. Students really enjoy this. And I've done it with the adults and had a great time with it. So again, we're bringing the emotion and the feelings into it. And we're manipulating them in a sense and playing with them, and we have mastery over what's happening. So that's working with poems. And those are just 2 poems I went and selected for these purposes. So you could select anything you care to. So you can see in the process, we're identifying emotions, we're managing them, because you could see when Kiana was doing it, she had to think about, like, I'm gonna, it's kind of a happy, goofy voice, and managing her facial expressions and so forth while we're watching and we're recognizing those. So example 3 is a haiku hand. I love haiku, and I did when I was in the classroom because it's a very simple format and it's easy to be successful. And you're using the 5-7-5 syllable count. And I love counting out the syllables, you know, with primary kids, you know, is it 5 syllables? Because they're checking themselves as they're writing, because you can count it out if it's working or not. And so you can make a haiku hand because haiku has 5 letters, and then you can write the 5-7-5. And that's a little tool that students can have, and you could send as an attachment or print out if you're in the classroom. And then from there, you can have the students make their own hand and decorate it. So that's the haiku hand. Now, of course, why I made this particular sample, and I had to use my left hand to draw with my right hand because I'm right-handed, and then write a haiku on it. And this is funny because I did this one more in the summer, but summertime is here. So summertime is here. How I long for some coolness. Please just bring on fall. So that's the 5-7-5. And I was obviously dreaming of today, which is October 1, and it doesn't feel like fall, but in fact it is. So that's another simple and fun poetry activity to do with elementary. This next one I really love, and I'm new to it, and I actually have a video about paint chip artwork that you can do. And so I'm lucky I'm not banned at the hardware store, because every time I go in I pick up one of these because they're free. And so, but like I said, you can do this type of artwork with, or excuse me, poetry with construction paper cut out, or post-it notes of different colors, because colors evoke emotion and colors are affiliated with different emotions. And so you really want students to have that choice and voice, and that they get to select what color they're going to work with on this poem. And here's a couple 3 examples. So on the far left, you see the student has worked with orange. And so every segment of orange starts with the word orange. And then they're describing something, feelings about orange, memories of orange, things that remind them of the color orange. The one in the center, they didn't repeat the color because it's kind of a yellow into ochre, but each segment has a thought. And so that's how they formulated their poem. And then the last one, they again started with the color, but there are a lot of description, feelings, memories, description, emotion. And so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to give it a few minutes. And just to reiterate, the color is affiliated with different emotions. And you can find these kind of charts on the internet. So like joy, cheerfulness, friendliness is affiliated with yellow. And I remember when I was a kid, we had a living room that was yellow and white. And I thought that was really odd. And my parents said, and this is the 70s, well, that's a happy, bright, cheerful place, you know. And like purple, affiliated with royalty, passion, vision, magic. So, you know, there's that component, and teaching students to understand which colors relate to which emotions is quite helpful. So I would like to take a moment to do this, a few minutes actually. And so remember, I would cue you to start each line with color, because that's a really easy way. Like if you have blue, each line will start with blue. And then try and do 3 to 5 memories or feelings about the color that you choose. And we don't want to concentrate on spelling or punctuation. We want to focus on that we're really describing to our listener and concentrate on those adjectives. So I'm going to put some music on, and I'll actually write one as well. And let's go ahead and do that together. So we'll give that just a few minutes. So go ahead and begin. I'll set the timer. And I'll put on some music. About 2 minutes, and I put the color chart with emotions back up if that's a helpful prompt. Okay, so that's our 5 minutes. And I know I went ahead and wrote a poem. Is there someone else, I don't want to just hear from me, who has a poem that they'd like to share that they felt was successful? And Jessica, if I missed something in the chat, let me know. Okay.
I will.
Okay, sounds good. I actually wrote one. I don't always do it as I'm teaching, but I wrote one on purple. I didn't write on the purple, I wrote it somewhere else. But I had 3 sections of purple, and then I pulled up my chart and looked at that. So mine is Purple's Passionate Vision and Magic. Purple Peugeot, my first bike. Purple, Prince, that guy knew how to make it rain. So that's my short, short little poem. Thinking about Prince because they just released his new retrospective album.
Ooh, yes.
Did you see that? It's very expensive. I have to think about it, but yeah.
I was just telling my dad, he transferred a bunch of music on a computer, and I was just, I hit an Alicia Keys song, and I was like, Dad, you know that's a Prince song, right? And he made that album of all the songs that he gave other people.
Oh, wow.
And so there's a rendition of How Come You Don't Call Me. Anyway, he was on my mind lately too.
Right.
I have another, if no,
Okay.
if no one else is unmuting. I chose orange because I had orange Post-its. And my title is Orange is Adventure. Orange is the sunrise calling us to the trail. Orange is the yearning to see what's around the next bend. Orange is the fire crackling as we recover from the day. Orange is the sunset.
That's
My
neat.
husband and I had hiked before, long into the wilderness hiking, and so that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, no, that was very evocative. It looks like Annie is unmuted.
Yeah.
Annie, are you going to share something?
Yes, will do.
Excellent. Thank you.
Blue is okay. Blue is the calmness of the morning sky. Blue is my heaven of my inner peace. Blue is my tranquility of the moment that I live.
Beautiful. It was really well done. Right, snap. That's what poets do. We do snaps, literally. But and you can see how wildly different all three of those were based on the color choice and based on the poet. And again, that's so enjoyable to share within a classroom setting or within a group. Thank you.
Speaking of what poets do, I don't know if everybody saw that, but the winner of America's Got Talent, did you see, is a spoken word poet. He won the whole thing.
Wow.
So I predict that poetry and spoken word are going to be making a comeback here pretty soon, and your kids are going to know more about what that means.
It's very big with high school. I've done a lot of work with spoken word over the years in high school. So, and if we, at the end, if there's time left over, I can pull up the other second poem that I didn't get to show you for anyone who cares to hear that. So yes, I agree. So we did our share out. Well done, everybody. Thank you. And then again, where is the SEL? So how does this activity engage us? You know, we have the support of the colors to prompt us in our writing. We're not just flat-footed like, oh gosh, what do I write? And we can bring forward our feelings and memories. And then when we share it out with each other, we gain an awareness of each other. Like Annie's poem told me something about her that was different from Kiana, that was different than my take on the different colors. So we're learning about each other as we're sharing our art. This is another fun one. They're all fun ones, but this is Jack Perletsky, who's famous for this particular poem about an ice cream shop and all the different flavors. And they're just awful. They're the weird combinations that you would never, ever want. And if there's one thing kids really love, it's silly or gross. And so this poem really speaks to that. And so if you want to do this with your own students, you know, you can either make like a black line master of this type of ice cream cone and have them colored in, or they can just draw it on their own and come up with the flavors that go alongside it. So making up names that are fantastical and then creating the art that goes along with it. And by the way, alliteration is really what's happening here, and it's when you have the same types of sounds with consonants. They're giving more stress to the syllables. So, you know, you can see cabot, cricket, crunch. So you're just really working with the C's or working with the S's and so forth. So again, building language skills in a way that's fun and not intimidating. So this is the other activity. We're on 6 of 7, so we're moving pretty quickly today. But this is called Blackout Poetry, and this works well for all ages. It's not challenging, but it's intriguing and it's fun. And so you can see in this particular page, this is why I ask you to have a page from a chapter book, is some of the words are circled, and then the rest of the words are crossed out. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to pick our page, and then we're only going to circle the words that speak to us, that pop out at us, that are interesting. So you take your page and you read through it quickly, and as you're going through, you circle and pencil words that speak to you or interest you, and you don't do anything with the other text at this point. So if it doesn't do anything for you, don't circle it. And as you're going along, themes or connections into the words you choose might appear to you. So let me just see if the next slide. Now we're going to go back. We're not going to do that yet. So, oops, wrong way. That's a preview. So at this point, what you want to do is you want to take a few minutes and you want to go ahead and read through and select words. So let's just give you about 2 minutes to do that. And like I said, if it's not something that you're interested in, don't circle it. So let's give 2 minutes on the timer to go ahead and go through our page and do that, starting now. About a minute left. It's actually 3 minutes total. Okay. That is our several minutes to go ahead and look for our keywords. And now is the point where we make that into a poem and also an artwork. So in the next 5 minutes, you want to look at the words that you circled and read them in order to speak your poem. So you're going to kind of thread them together. And then based on the content of your poem, you're going to use the background as a way to decorate or complement. Now, obviously, this is pretty high level. This is probably a high school that did it, but your goal is to cover up the words with your artwork, and it could just be color. So when you look at the words that are left on this page, the poem is, I turned inward to wish of skylarks and breezes. And so they took the word skylarks and made that the subject of their artwork. But here's a few other examples that I clicked on earlier. So this one, the poem is, time admitted justice led the blooming, knowing at the mention to suspect to tell. So there's something about blooming, so they took that and ran with it and did some twine or vines intertwined and flowers and a blue background. And then the one on the right, you can see the words, looking for something, I know his voice, I turn my first instinct, smile and stay. And so that person went a different direction. They just used an abstract form in red to decorate the page, and of course got a little fancy with the scrapbooking scissors on the side. So really what you're looking to do, even if it's just with color or very abstract, is to take out what's around the poem that you've created through selection, through editing, and then take out the rest of the words or make those not part of the situation where they kind of fade away. So we're going to give you 5 minutes to work with whatever coloring materials you have to go ahead and do this. And so put the timer back on. And no pressure, Kiana, but I'm expecting great things from you. See, the wonderful thing about this is if you're doing the artwork on site, then you have a make and take sample that you can turn around and use tomorrow, right? All right.
I was distracted, but I put a goodie for you in the chat because we've done this digitally. So we can talk about it after we're done, but I wanted to share that with you.
Okay. Okay, about 2 minutes. So that is 5 minutes. And I actually started playing around with one several minutes in, just to challenge myself. I tried to pick something like a kind of boring and academic piece of writing and see if I could make something of it. But I'd like to offer someone else a chance to share with us what they came up with in trying that. Wondering, I know Annie did such a great share out before. I'm wondering if she has anything for us.
I have something. May I share? I don't know.
Yes, please. Who's speaking? There you are.
Annie. This is
Okay,
Annie.
great.
Okay,
Hi.
let me see. I took a picture. What do you call a copy of the page of Charlotte's web,
Okay.
and the words that I circled was beloved, home, safe, welcome, happy, and I drew a house, the outline of a house.
Oh, nice. Are you able to hold that up to your camera?
Yes, I am. Let me see.
Tough when you have the green screen, I know.
Okay. Here.
Oh.
Let me.
Perfect. I see it.
You see it there?
I see it. It's perfect. Excellent. Very well done. It kind of reminds me of Snoopy's doghouse in a way. That little shape. That's great. And then I love how you popped out the words in yellow, so then it's easy to track them and read. Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Kiana, did you do something this time? No, that's right. You were doing something else.
No, I just we've used this strategy in a different way in some of our trainings. So I put a link in the chat to some samples of a digital text. We called it a text rendering, but yeah, it's found poetry. So they.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's like found materials.
Yeah. So we were able to clip the text from an article and put chunks on a slide. So paragraph by paragraph, if you click that, that's what you would see. And then the teams worked together to decide what were the 3 to 5 most important phrases. And then they used the black highlighter in Google Slides to black out the words that they weren't choosing.
Right.
And then they just inserted images from the web to reinforce what they left behind. So that was a digital text rendering.
I'll have to try that. And it kind of reminds me, I don't know why I just thought of it now as we were working on, when I was doing my master's, we talked about the concept of Occam's razor, which is you just take out every word that you don't need. And I was working with an academic text, and I took out 2/3 of the words, and it still had the import of what they were trying to say. So I think we tend to be really wordy and throw a lot on top that we don't need. So it's really getting students to play around and edit what's already there can be another way.
Absolutely. I want to just call out the ELD piece of that too, because part of those standards is to connect or condense ideas. And so going through this exercise really from a linguistic standpoint makes you condense, look for exactly that, the words that are extra, but what can I left behind that still makes meaning? Exactly.
Well said. So again, I keep returning to this idea of why is this, or how is this SEL and engaging for us as learners? Does the visual art enhance what's happening? How did you feel? Like, Annie, as she was making that house in her poem, how did she feel as she was creating? And how does music help a learner to relax and feel creative. So the last idea that I wanted to share with you has been around for quite some time. It's called Poem in Your Pocket. There's actually a national day for that in April. And so all poets love that. But what I like about doing this in a classroom setting or a distance learning setting is that you can have students do some research and select their favorite poem. And they can memorize it, or they can print it out and share it with their family and friends, share it with their classmates. It's a great activity for Flipgrid to record it, the poem for teacher, or even the activity that Kiana was just suggesting, where you can make something digitally with it. And in fact, this year I had bookmarks made, and they're up on the RCO ABAPA website. There was 4 bookmarks with poems that students could download and color them in. So another way to access poetry. And so if you look at our list of the 7 we talked about, we're using different ways to come at it. What's sensory, like taking things out of the bag, using our voice, decorating a hand, playing with sound in terms of the words, alliteration, paint chip, using color, editing. So there's just many different ways to do this, and I would challenge you to think of 1 or maybe 2 that you can incorporate into your teaching right away.
Can you re-explain the poem in your pocket? How does, what's the prompt, or how do you get to that?
It's not really a prompt in the sense that it's kids exploring and finding their favorite poem to share. And so then sharing out can look a lot different. In a classroom setting, and I believe there's a picture here, like Poem in Your Pocket up here. See National Poem in Your Pocket, and then there's different options for students to write poems and put them in. So it's pretty tactile. You could do it digitally. And my intention had been, if we were still in the offices, to have little cards printed out and to go through the office and hand out cards, and of course they expect it of me because I'm the arts person, so it wouldn't surprise anybody. But it's just a way of getting students to identify what's their favorite, not what you as the teacher are putting forth. And then them, memorizing it or reciting it or writing out, making art around it, sharing with others. So that's it in a nutshell. So let's see. And then again, like the similarities in this approach, it's, there's a real focus on vocabulary, we're relaxing rules, we're playing more, we want to draw in the SEL parts of imagination and feelings. And what I love about poetry, we're showing through our poetry, we're not telling. We're creating a world, and we're showing it to each other without just straight up telling it. And again, for EL learners, I think it's a real on-ramp into language arts. Reading, writing, speaking, it's a place to be culturally relevant. Pablo Neruda, if you don't know him, is my absolute favorite poet of all time since way back, and he's published in Spanish. And consider sharing Spanish poems with your students and how much more beautiful they are in the original language that he wrote them in. He's a Chilean poet, and I have Langston Hughes up there. Repeatedly reading things, if you have your favorite poem, that builds your fluency. So another reason to consider poetry in your arts. And I always like to refresh this, we are really after that sense of love and belonging and self-esteem, and very powerfully done through the arts, and so necessary now more than ever. Creating work has been undervalued, but it's at the top of the pyramid for intellectually what is challenging for students. So we really want to be there producing new things. And Gardner's intelligences, I believe it's 6 of them, are encompassed in artwork, in art, music, dance, theater, and media arts. So it's really ticking a lot of boxes when we do artwork. So if you're thinking about where this fits into my planning, I think the good thing is it can be right into language arts. It's integrated, and we're pressed for time for sure. But again, it's also that carrot that motivates students to be with you, that it's really interesting and engaging. And I think creating a space of non-judgment is really important. I think we judge ourselves. We need to give ourselves grace, but we're creating a safe place to share out our writing and giving positive feedback. I'm sure you noticed me modeling that, and that's how I do it in the classroom, to draw that out from students. Always feedback, always feeling comfortable about sharing with others. It's interesting to note that social and emotional learning integrated with artistic processes is underway formally in New Jersey, and California is adopting this exactly. So if Jessica puts this in the chat, this is something you can go and look at your leisure, how the artistic processes line up with social and emotional. So it's not something I made up. It's actually very real and very doable. This is a book that I've just finished recently. It's fresh, and it talks about social emotional. When I have a chapter book like this that's, you know, work related, I read a chapter here and then I put it aside and I read the chapter there and digest. So it's just a man telling his own story. He's a PhD now, of how he was bullied and how he really struggled, and how social emotional learning really helped him survive and thrive. And so again, now more than ever, very important. So I recommend that.
Yeah, I follow Dr. Brackett almost like
Right?
a little bit of a stalker. And he's starting another book study on permission to feel, and he does it just live on Facebook, power hours for 2 chapters at a time is how he did
That's
it last
great.
time. So
That's great.
I'll send that in the OMS follow-up, a link to his book study.
Good to know. Okay, so let me. And a couple other poetry resources I want to recommend. Poets.org has specialized poetry for students, great poems to work from. The NEA has something called Bringing Poetry to the Classroom that I highly recommend. And the BBC has a poet by the name of Joseph Quella who's awesome, and he does little videos, so you want to check him out. On the RCOE VAPA website, we have 5 lessons on social and emotional learning. So those are art-based lessons, but again, if you're interested in social and emotional, we've started to flesh out those video offerings. And I want you to feel comfortable to contact me for support. It's not a bother. I welcome emails. You know, one of the upsides of this situation, I've never been more on top of my emails. Jessica can vouch for that. I get it done. And, you know, coming from a large county like Riverside and working with Imperial, we really want to be there for you and support rural communities. So I really want you to feel free. That is a sincere offer on my part. And I'm not going to do our survey because I'm sure you have your own, Kiana. And just, if you don't mind putting in the chat or just speaking it, you know, take your mic off. I said, share one word about how you're feeling about incorporating poetry. So I think either one word or else one of the lessons that you think you might be willing to tackle, say next week. Okay, proud and accomplished. Poem in a bag, okay.
Yes, I'm thinking about that poetry in a bag and digitizing it again. So there is just a quick little website, the wheelofnames.com, and it allows you to type in the students' names, but it also allows you to drag in images into the spinning wheel, digitally spinning wheel. So I'm thinking you could put different pictures of objects and spin it, and on the screen it would land on the object. It takes away a little bit from the sound and the texture, but if they have some background knowledge of what that thing is, it might work. So that's where I'm at.
Digitally, yeah. And I think really for me that this collection of activities is really about bringing the fun into the classroom and really bringing down intimidation, bringing up the fun. And fun is not a bad word. Fun is entirely useful in teaching. And I think everyone should be able to have a smile and have a good day and really be able to access these social and emotional techniques. So anyway, I will stand for a few minutes and answer questions. Thank you, Annie, for being brave enough to show us your work. I really appreciate you so much. And